Hey everyone, and welcome back. We love to take these deep dives together, and today we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of you will relate to,
Hmm.
especially if you've ever felt that kind of pressure to fit in, that feeling.
Yeah.
We're looking at this student's post, and it's on a pretty popular online forum,
Hmm.
and they're basically asking for advice, how to deal with being surrounded by wealth
Hmm.
at their prestigious university.
Oh yeah, that's got to be a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's interesting because this student is working their way through school, right?
Working hard?
While at the same time surrounded by all these classmates who just seem to have it all, unlimited resources,
Hmm.
family connections, travel opportunities. Like, how do you even deal with those feelings of not belonging?
It's a fascinating look, I think, into, how economic disparity can really have such an impact on someone's experience, especially, in a high pressure environment like that.
Absolutely. And, the responses to this student's question
Oh yeah.
were all over the place.
Yeah, totally.
Some people offered practical advice, others went full on philosophical.
Right.
And then there were those who just went for the humor and the cynicism. It's like a gold mine of different coping mechanisms.
It is.
So
Shit, a gold mine.
let's unpack some of those practical tips that people offered.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so a lot of folks suggested, you know, finding friends who are in similar situations, build your own network, and also really make the most of all the resources that the university offers.
Yeah. And, these are way more than just, surface level suggestions.
Right.
There's a real reason these strategies work.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We're wired for connection as human beings,
Absolutely.
sharing experiences with others who truly understand your struggles.
Yeah.
That can really foster a sense of belonging and even create some really amazing opportunities for, mutual support.
Like you're building a support system,
Yeah.
from the ground up. I love that.
Yeah, it is.
Now, one comment that really stood out to me was this idea of using the situation as fuel for motivation.
Mhm.
Like using this to build a better future, not just for yourself, but for future generations too.
I love that. And that comment really speaks to the power of grit, that
Mm.
ability to just persevere through challenges no matter what. And there's this amazing researcher, Angela Duckworth. You might have heard of her.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so she's a leading researcher in this field, and she actually found that grit is often a way better predictor of success than talent or IQ.
Wow.
So the student situation, as tough as it is, could actually be a catalyst for developing that crucial resilience.
Yeah. So instead of just dwelling on what they're lacking, they could channel that energy, into achieving their goal. It's almost like turning a disadvantage into an advantage.
You got it exactly. And I mean, there are so many examples of successful individuals, people who we all know who overcame some significant financial hurdles early in life.
Right.
It's not about where you start, it's about how you adapt and how you persevere.
That's so true. I'm also really curious about the more philosophical responses that we saw.
Yeah.
A lot of people emphasize the importance of perspective and gratitude.
And this is where understanding, the psychology of comparison can be so helpful.
Yeah.
We're just bombarded with these images of perfect lives, especially on social media. And it's so easy to fall into that comparison trap.
Oh, it's so easy.
But constantly measuring ourselves against others, that can lead to, just a cycle of dissatisfaction. And that's regardless of our actual circumstances.
Right. It's like that saying comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly.
But how do we shift our mindset away from that constant comparison game?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get sucked into.
Well, that's where gratitude comes in. Researchers have actually found that just focusing on what we are grateful for can have such a significant impact on our well-being.
I can see that.
It's about training our minds to appreciate what we have rather than just fixating on what we lack.
So instead of focusing on the fact that, some classmates have their parents footing the bill,
Yeah.
this student could focus on, the fact that they earned their spot
Right.
at this prestigious university through hard work and dedication.
I love that. Absolutely. And that shift in perspective can be so incredibly empowering. It allows us to define success on our own terms,
Right.
rather than by someone else's standards.
I love that. Now, there was one comment that sparked a lot of debate, and that was this suggestion to network with the wealthier students
Yeah.
to potentially benefit from their connections.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's where things get a little tricky.
Yeah.
It really touches on this idea of social capital, which is essentially the value that we get from our social networks.
Mm.
It's a reality that connections can open doors, but it's important to approach this ethically and authentically.
Right. Because it could easily feel like you're using people or
Yeah.
you're just trying to force these relationships that aren't genuine.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. It'd be
Yeah.
open to building relationships with people from different backgrounds, but make sure those connections are based on mutual respect and shared interests,
Mm.
not just the potential for personal gain.
So we've explored some practical tips and some philosophical reflections,
Mhm.
but let's be honest. Sometimes you just need a good laugh
Oh, yeah.
to deal with the absurdity of it all. And a few of the comments were absolutely hilarious. Someone simply wrote, "I go to work,"
I love that.
while another one suggested to the student, "Revel in the knowledge that you're probably much smarter than all those rich kids."
Oh, I love those. They really highlight the diverse coping mechanisms that people use. Sometimes humor is the best way to deal with a situation that just feels so unfair or overwhelming.
Yeah.
And those comments, while funny, also point to some really interesting psychological strategies.
Like what?
Well, I go to work. That reflects a very stoic approach, focusing on what you can control. And the other comment about being smarter that hints at, bolstering self-confidence as a way to cope. It's fascinating how even these seemingly simple comments can reveal so much about how people process these challenging situations.
It really is, and it's like everyone brings their own unique toolkit,
Yeah.
to deal with these situations.
totally-
It's amazing.
It's like we create this, mental toolbox of coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And we draw on, different strategies depending on the situation. And this conversation about economic disparity, it also brings up this whole concept of privilege.
That's a really good point, and several comments did touch on that, the advantages that these wealthier students have.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because some people also pointed out that even privilege has its nuances. Like, money doesn't necessarily solve everything.
Oh, absolutely. While financial resources can certainly ease certain burdens, they don't shield anyone from, just the universal challenges of life.
Right.
Heartbreak loss, the search for meaning.
Yeah.
And sometimes, having everything handed to you can actually hinder personal growth.
There was one comment about how those students might actually struggle when they enter the real world, having to face challenges that they've never encountered before.
It's like that idea of building anti-fragility.
Anti-fragility.
Yeah, it's a term this guy Nassim Taleb coined. He argues that systems, or in this case, individuals, actually become stronger when they're exposed to stressors. Overcoming challenges that builds resilience, adaptability, resourcefulness.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, qualities that are essential for navigating the ups and downs of life.
So maybe facing some adversity early on isn't such a bad thing.
Right.
It can force you to develop these skills that people who've always had a safety net, might lack.
That's an interesting perspective. And speaking of perspective, a lot of the comments really emphasize the importance of defining success on your own terms,
Yes.
not by someone else's standards.
I love that there were so many great reminders, about focusing on your personal goals, pursuing your passions, creating your own unique path.
It's a powerful message. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing, especially in a competitive environment. But true fulfillment, that comes from aligning your actions with your values, not trying to keep up with, some external definition of success.
So instead of constantly comparing yourself to classmates who, might have more financial resources,
Yeah.
it's about recognizing your own strengths and building a life that feels meaningful to you.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the importance of self-awareness.
Yeah.
What are your passions? What are your values? What do you want to contribute to the world? When you have a clear sense of those things, it becomes easier to stay focused on your own journey, even when you're surrounded by distractions.
A lot of people also talked about using this experience as an opportunity for personal growth.
Yes, and this is where we see that concept of grit come into play again,
Right.
Facing challenges, even those that seem unfair,
Yeah.
can really build character resilience and a strong sense of self. It's about recognizing that obstacles are just an inherent part of life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how we choose to respond to them that defines us.
One commenter said that they'd rather be proud of their hard-earned success, than rely on their parents' wealth.
That speaks to, I think, the human need for autonomy and self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Yeah, that belief in our own ability to achieve goals. There's a deep sense of satisfaction that comes from accomplishing something through your own efforts.
Absolutely.
Reinforces our sense of agency and control over our lives.
There's also a lot to be said about finding your tribe.
Oh, yeah.
Those people who understand your situation and support you, regardless of your financial status.
Absolutely. Community is essential for well-being,
Yeah,
especially when you're facing challenges.
for sure.
Surrounding yourself with people who share your values and support your aspirations can make all the difference.
Many comments focused on finding friends who were also working their way through school or who, simply didn't define themselves by their family's wealth.
It's a reminder that shared experiences can create such powerful bonds. They can bridge socioeconomic gaps.
Yeah,
We often have more in common with people from different backgrounds than we might realize.
that's true.
And those connections can be so valuable, offering support, understanding a sense of belonging. It's about building genuine relationships that transcend those material differences.
While we're on the topic of support, it's important to remember that many universities have resources available to help students facing financial challenges.
That's right.
Oh, right. I almost forgot about that. Some commenters did mention, reaching out to the university for assistance.
It's a great reminder that students don't have to navigate these difficulties alone.
Right.
Whether it's financial aid counseling services or student support groups, there are often systems in place to help level the playing field. It's about being proactive and advocating for your own needs.
It's like taking advantage of the tools that are already there to support you.
Exactly.
And it's a good reminder for all of us, really. Sometimes we forget to ask for help, even when it's readily available.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking we have to do everything on our own,
Yeah.
but recognizing that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness, can be a game changer. It's about being resourceful and recognizing that we're all part of a larger community. And I think this student situation highlights something really important, that economic disparity,
Yeah.
it can impact different generations.
That's an excellent point. Several commenters mentioned how their parents' financial struggles, shaped their own upbringing and influenced their aspirations for the future.
Yeah, one person talked about wanting to break the cycle of poverty, and create a better future for their children.
It's a powerful testament to the enduring impact of financial hardship, and it also speaks to, I think, the human desire to create a better world for future generations. We're not just individuals striving for our own success.
Right.
We're also part of a larger narrative that extends beyond our own lifetimes.
It makes you think about the concept of social mobility, the ability to move up or down the economic ladder. What factors contribute to that, and how can we create more opportunities for people to achieve their full potential regardless of their starting point? That's a huge question, and one that sociologists and economists have been grappling with for decades.
I bet.
But I think it starts with recognizing, the systemic barriers that often prevent upward mobility, access to quality education, affordable housing, healthcare, mentorship.
It's about creating a society that supports individuals and families, regardless of their background.
Exactly. And while this student situation might feel overwhelming at times, it's important to remember that they're already taking a significant step towards a brighter future by pursuing higher education.
All right. They're investing in themselves, expanding their knowledge, and building a network that will create opportunities down the line.
And who knows, maybe they'll become one of those individuals who defied the odds and achieved remarkable success, inspiring others to do the same.
It's a reminder that while our backgrounds can shape our journeys, they don't have to define our destinies. We all have the power to create our own versions of success and happiness, even when facing seemingly insurmountable challenges.
And that brings us to a crucial point that several commenters highlighted: the importance of self-care.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle of it all, university life, that you forget to take care of yourself.
Especially in a high-pressure environment like that. A prestigious university where there's this constant sense of competition, not just academically, but also socially and financially.
It's like you're juggling multiple versions of Keeping Up with the Joneses all at once.
Exactly. It's no wonder so many students feel overwhelmed and burned out. So how do we even prioritize self-care without it feeling like just another thing to add to the to-do list, right?
Right. Well, a lot of commenters suggested, finding small, manageable ways to de-stress things, like going for walks in nature, listening to music, or taking a few minutes to meditate.
Those are all excellent strategies for grounding yourself and, cultivating a sense of inner peace. It's about incorporating mindfulness into your daily routine, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time.
And it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that self-care isn't selfish. It's an essential part of maintaining your well-being. You can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that analogy. It's a reminder that we need to replenish our own energy reserves to function at our best, both mentally and emotionally.
And this conversation has really highlighted the diverse ways people approach challenges, from practical tips and philosophical reflections to humor and self-care. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
What's so powerful about this online forum is that it allows people to share their experiences and learn from each other. It's a reminder that we're not alone in facing these kinds of challenges.
Exactly. And while this particular deep dive focused on a student's experience with economic disparity at a prestigious university, the insights and strategies we've discussed are applicable to so many different situations.
It's about finding what resonates with you, what aligns with your values, and what empowers you to move forward with confidence and a sense of purpose.
Well said, we all have our own unique journeys, but we can learn from each other's experiences and support each other along the way.
This deep dive has really given me a lot to think about. It's a reminder that even in challenging circumstances, there are always opportunities for growth, connection, and resilience.
And that even though our backgrounds and circumstances may differ, we all share common human experiences and aspirations. We're all striving to find our place in the world and create a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
This has been a fascinating exploration of economic disparity,
Wow.
resilience, community, and self-care. We've covered so much ground today, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn and explore. We encourage you to continue reflecting on these themes, share your own experiences, and engage in meaningful conversations with those around you.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment below. We're passionate about exploring these kind of thought-provoking topics and bringing you diverse perspectives from all walks of life.
We're always looking for new ideas and insights, so feel free to share your thoughts and suggestions. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep the conversation going.